Hi, it's Miss Courtney. We're here today to paint another painting. This one is going to be, I guess you could say it's a landscape, but it's an abstract landscape. It's only partial, and it has the ocean that is coming onto the beach, and you can see here it's kind of telling a story. There's some flip-flops here because obviously whoever's these belong to are either in the water swimming or they're kind of playing on the beach. So we're going to do something like this today, and the technique we're going to learn about is more brush strokes that are not like the blending that we have done before, but allowing different colors to live together and show movement. And we're also going to mix some colors to make this brown color. So I'm going to show you about mixing colors and doing brush strokes for with different colors to show some depth. And I also did some fun splatter. Everyone loves splatter. So if you haven't gotten your materials ready already, we're going to talk about what you need before we begin. I did the sample on a canvas board. So if you have something like this, a canvas board, that's fine. If you have a canvas, that's okay too. And I'm trying something new today. I'm going to use this canvas paper. And this says that it's okay for oil and acrylic paint, and that's perfect. So we'll see how this works. And it's a big sheet of paper, and I've taped it off so that you can see in the video just this section. So we need some type of canvas. We need to make sure our workspace is covered. If you aren't in a studio where you have a messy table like mine, you want to make sure it's covered. Get a paper towel or some kind of paint cloth that you can wipe your brush onto. You need a little bit of water with your paint brushes. I have my brushes in there because I like to have them wet, and then I am ready to go. And then the paint colors we need today are going to be blue, and I have either a bright blue or a real blue. I don't know, this seems like it's real blue, so I don't know why this one is called real blue. Anyway, a darker blue will work. We need a white paint, and I have just this white paint. And then we're going to need some red paint, and then another color for the flip-flops to add straps. I grabbed a yellow. You might have another color. If you have a purple or whatever you want, we can make a pink too with the red. So those are the colors that I grabbed for today's painting. And then you're going to want a couple brushes. I have either a brush like this where you can, let me see if you can see it. You can see the tips kind of fine pointed. So you want to brush kind of like this. And then if you do have a brush, I'm going to show you a couple different ones. Something like this that has kind of a wide brush at the top. Either one of these, this size will work too. So if you don't have your materials ready, go ahead, pause the video, go grab them, set up your space, and meet me back here. Okay, we are back and ready to go. I forgot to say a pencil too, but you don't, if you could go grab a pencil, always have a pencil with you, because remember, as artists, we need to kind of map out our painting so we know what we're doing. This one we don't have to do so much work with because we're going to be using a lot of the paint techniques, but we want to make that kind of that line for the water. And I'll show you my painting again. The water line goes kind of diagonally across the painting. It is not perfectly straight. I like to call this line wonky. It's a fun art term. And it just has a little bit of a movement in it. So we're going to create a line that goes across our painting. And we're not going to start all the way down here. And we're not going to start in the middle. We're going to start somewhere like this, and I'm going to put a dot on my painting so you can see where I'm starting. So if you can see, this dot's right here, and I'm going to end it, and I'm going to take my finger and kind of follow across, I think right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put a dot there so I know where I'm going to make my water line. And then what I'm going to do is kind of just sketch out that wonky line, and it's just water. I don't have like a lot of wave. Whoops, see, I'm going a little bit further. That's okay. And if you go a little further up, see what I did? I went above my dot. That's okay. We're just going to kind of erase that dot, but we're going to cover it up with paint so it won't matter if we don't get it completely. So we just kind of want this wonky line so we know that's the water. So everything above is going to be the ocean, and everything below is going to be the beach. Okay, so go ahead and make that kind of wonky line. You want a nice area above and below. You don't want it, you know, too much that's cut off. And what we're going to do first is we're going to work on the top. And I forgot to tell you one more thing. You need a paint palette. So I use a paper plate. I'm going to show you which one because I forgot mine too. I use just a plate like this. You can use even a piece of cardboard if you have it. You know, something that's going to hold it, not a paper towel or paper because the paint will soak through. So I apologize, I didn't tell you ahead of time. If you want to go grab that, you can pause the video and then catch up with us. So you need one of these. We are going to put on our palette, we're going to get our blue, and mine doesn't have the wrapper off of it, so I always unscrew it. And we just need a little bit of blue. We don't need a ton, because we can always add more. So I just do that. I have my blue. And then I need my white. And I just need a little bit. And I'm going to have it separated so that it doesn't run together. And my white's going to, ooh, there it goes. Okay, we just need a little bit. We don't need a ton. So I have the blue and white. And then we're going to grab your brush, one of these flat brushes. I'm going to grab this one. And if you notice, my brush has, it's very dirty with paint, but it has a metal tip right here. See the metal part? When you hold your paintbrush, your fingers are going to be on that metal tip. You want to be close to your brush, and you're almost going to hold it like you would a pencil. Because when you're back here, a lot of people try to paint like this, you don't have control of the brush, and we want control over it. So I'm going to take my brush, and I'm just going to put some blue down right now. And when I paint, I want you to watch me first. I don't go straight across. I kind of go in some wavy lines. I want to make movement in the water. And I'm doing this with my paint, so I'm not making it completely opaque. And that, again, is a fancy art word. Opaque, it means that you can't see through it. So it's okay if you make it where you can see the white, because that actually makes less work for you when you have to put the white on top of it. So we're just doing this, and see how we're making movement with our brush? I'm just kind of going across like this, and we want to make it look like water right from the beginning. If we went straight across with the blue paint and just covered it up, we would have to go back over it with the movement because it would just be solid blue, and that doesn't show really water. Water has a lot of movement to it. So when I get down here, I'm kind of following along that water line, just like this. Doesn't it already look like water? Just from making movement with my brush. I'm just going back and forth like this. So before that blue dries, we want to go back into the white, and we're going to add some movement with the white. It's kind of like the white caps of maybe a wave. And we don't want to blend it in so that it makes a light blue and we're covering up the navy blue or the dark blue. See how I'm just going in with thin kind of little movement lines? So it's making it look like the movement of water already. See that? And it's okay if we see a line of blue and then white, and then we see it blend in a little bit, but we still see some white and we still see some dark blue. Okay? So now I've done that. I'm going to wipe my brush off a little bit, and I'm going to get that dark blue again and kind of go over it in little areas to really make sure some of the areas have the darkest blue. So we want to see white, the darkest blue, And then whatever color you mix together when you put your white over top of it. It might be like a light blue. So you want to make sure you see all three. You don't want it to be solid light blue. We don't want to blend it together. And we're just going to move it around until we're happy with the movement of the water. And I'm actually kind of happy with it. If you're not and you're still working, you can pause the video and you can catch up with us. If you are happy, we're going to move on and we're going to take our brush, put in the water because we're done with that brush, and we're going to take our thinner brush or the smaller brush and dip it in the white, and we're going to make kind of a white line right here where the water's edge will meet the sand. We're just going to go ahead and go through with some white so we know that's going to be the whitest white. And we'll go back over this too. I had some red on here from before, you can kind of see it once we put the beach in. Okay, so that's going to show the break of the water onto the beach. And you can't see it, but my paint is actually looking very textured. You can see a thickness to it and a thinness to it as I move, and that's okay. You want that because it's really adding depth, and you're going to hear that a lot when I talk about painting to your painting. So go ahead and do this, and when you're finished, you're going to put your brush in your water and pause it if you're not finished, and then meet me back here for the next step. Okay, we're ready for the next step, and that is to add some spray, water spray to the water before we do the beach. And I'm going to show you my original. And you can see right here, there's a little bit of splatter, and it looks like, you know, the water spray when the water crashes onto the beach. And I thought this would be really a fun element to add to our painting. So we want to do this before we do the beach because the splatter, we can't really control where it goes, and it will go onto the beach and look white, and we'll have to cover it up, and it's just, it's easier to do it now. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your paint palette, and you have your brushes in the water, and they should be, you know, kind of cleaned off. If not, you're going to tap it, wipe it on the paper towel so that we know that it doesn't have any blue color on it at all. So we're going to dip it back in the water. And this technique, I want you to watch me first, okay? You're going to dip your paintbrush in the white. And remember, we have water, you know, it's really wet, but I don't think this is going to be wet enough. So what I'm going to do is dip it back into the water just a little bit. And then over top of just this corner, I'm going to go like this. Tap, 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 tap. And you see how it's made this spray? I don't want to do a lot of it, and it's wet, so it's going to take a little bit of time to dry because it's a really watered down paint. So let me just do a little bit more just to get that spray right there. Because we're going to have our shoes here, and that's a good balance to the painting. So I like the way it looks, so I'm going to leave it. And now I'm going to put my paintbrush right back in the water. So now we're going to move on to the beach, and the beach is like a tan color. If you happen to have tan paint, that's great. You can use the tan paint as it is, but I'm going to show you how we can make tan, and it's a little involved. So if you want to watch me and then pause it and then try to do it, that's fine. So watch me first, because if you try to do it with me, you might miss a step and you won't see the whole process. So what I'm going to do is I have my palette here, and I know that to make a purple, we need what colors? If you said red and blue, you are correct. So I'm going to get some blue paint, just a little bit, because we're going to make our own brown. And I'm going to get a little bit of the red. Sometimes you have to shake it to get it down. My paint sometimes will clog up. So I have a little bit of the red there. Okay. we're going to mix this together to make like a purple. It's not going to make a bright purple. It's going to make kind of a rust color purple, I guess. Let's see. We'll just see what happens. So we're going to mix it together like this. It's not really making a pretty color. I don't think it is. I think it's kind of like a muddy purple. Maybe we'll describe it like that. It's definitely not beachy, but it's gonna be a good base for our tan or brown tone. So the next color we're gonna add in is a little bit of the yellow, and I'm just gonna do it slowly because we can always add in more. Okay, we can't take away once we put it in. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to start mixing it in to make that tan. And I'm going to need a lot more yellow. You can see this is really too dark. So let me shake this yellow up. I'm going to add a little bit more in till we get that kind of tan color that we want. And you know how when you were in school and your teacher might have said, don't mix all the colors together, it makes brown. See, it kind of does. That's a little better, right? It's getting a little tan. And you want to make sure that you have the tan here, but you also have the blue here and the purple here. And we want to make sure that it's going to be all mixed in, because if we put our brush in this and it's darker, it's going to mess up our beach. Okay. And we don't want to paint our plate so we don't have the paint. I think this is still a little bit too purple. So let's get a little bit more yellow. We're going to do this. And let's see what happens. It's starting to look a little bit more like a beach color, right? I still think I want to do a little bit more yellow, just a little bit more, because we don't want it really yellow. And remember, we can't take it away once we've added it to the color. What do you think? I think that looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty beachy, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting this part here, this color. And I have white also. I want to make sure I have both. So I'm going to go ahead and for the beach, I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to go back and forth like this. Again, if we just went straight across and colored it in, filled it in, it would look really flat. And the beach we know is not flat. It has a lot of movement too. It's just a different kind of movement. So I'm just going to go back and forth like this. I'm not going to be too careful. And along the water line, I'm going to even go like this to fill it in. Just like this. And if we have some white left, that's okay, because we're going to actually add a little bit of white streaks to it to add depth again. There's that word. So it's starting to look more like a landscape of the beach, wouldn't you say? Okay, so we have this. Now I'm going to dip this brush, even when it has brown on it. I'm not going to wipe it off. I'm going to dip it into a little bit of the white, and I'm going to go through and kind of add some highlights so that it makes it look less flat. And when I mean flat, I mean it's all one color. So we're letting the colors, remember, live together. We don't want them to disappear. We're not going to just make one tan color. we want to see a little bit of white, and we want to see that brown, okay? So when you're happy with the way your beach looks, you know, completely filled in, we're going to do something else to add some more depth to it. So you can see on my palette, I have some of that purple. If you don't have any of the darker color left, we can make it again. We can make a little bit of red and a little bit of the blue and mix it together to make that purple. Because we just need that darker color, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to wipe my brush off. And we're going to dip it in that darkest color like that. Okay. And then we're going to do that very same thing that we did to the ocean spray. Back in the waters for a little bit. We're going to add a little bit of splatter down here to be the little speckles of the darker sand. And I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to try not to get it up here, but if we do, that's okay, because we're going to go back over this wave here with some white. So I'm just going to add a little bit of speckle, just a tiny bit, not too much. And if I added too much to it, here's what I can do. I can go back with the tan and I can kind of go over it and blend it in. So it's not a big deal, okay? If you did a little bit too much, if you got a little bit too crazy with it. But try not to do too much of this, because once you blend all of this in, it's hard to start back and go over it with the brown. So I like the way this looks. I think this looks really good. I like the way it's looking like the beach. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean my brush off, because I want to go back in with the white. I'm going to brush it off so that I can make sure that it doesn't have any more of that tan. And I keep going back in the water and brushing it off, back in the water, brushing it off. And then I can even, my hands always get dirty. I can go like this. I think it's pretty clean. So I'm going to go back into my white paint. So my white paint's looking a little dried up. I still do have some white, but if you don't, you're going to want to pour a little bit more on your palette. Yeah, that's a little dry. So let's get some more white paint. And I don't want to sit my palette on my painting, so I'm doing it off camera. But just know I'm pouring a little bit of fresh white paint on my palette, okay? See, it's right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this white again so that it's nice and crisp. If I got any brown in it, I got a little brown up here. So I'm going to just go like this. So I know this is, excuse me, is really crisp. Like that. Okay, and I think that looks good. If you're not finished, you can continue, pause the video, because the next step is we're going to add in the little flip-flops. And we do need it to dry just a little bit. So if you want to take a break, pause the video, take 5 minutes or longer. You can always come back to this later, because if it's perfectly dry, that's actually even better. So pause the video, take a break, and then come back to it, and we'll finish up with the shoes. Okay? Okay, so we are all done our ocean part, our beach part, our splatter. We've had a break. Our paintings had time to dry a little bit. I went ahead and took the tape off of mine so you could see. I'm just curious. I will tell you, I use painter's tape to just tape my paper down so you could only see one part. And the painter's tape did take off a little bit of the paper around the edge. But if you put painter's tape on it, just know that on the edge, just be really careful when you take it off. So this painting's not done. It's just right now a beach. We want to put the actual focal point in. And the focal point in a painting is something that draws your eye and gives the painting meaning. And right now it's a beach. It could be an abstract beach, and that's fine. But we need something on the beach part. And I'm going to put some flip-flops. You, if you want to add shells, you could even get some real shells, and you could glue them on to be more of a three-dimensional piece, then that's fine too. It's really your artwork. So if you want to do something else to it, you can. I'm going to show you my original painting again, and it's this one, and you see it's got some flip-flops down here, and we're going to add this element on. I just did red with yellow straps. If you want to do something a little bit more, you can. If you want to put stripes on your flip-flops or polka dots, just know that it's really hard sometimes to paint in details. So what I do recommend is that once it's done and it's dry, you could come in and add details with Sharpie or a crayon or something like that, just so you can have more control over it. It's kind of hard to paint the details if you don't have a really fine brush, okay? So I'm just giving you that heads up. So right now I'm just gonna do one solid color just because it's the easiest to show you, and you can be more creative if you want to. So I'm gonna use my palette again, and I'm just gonna get my red paint, and I'm gonna put a little bit of red on my palette, and I don't need too much because we don't want to waste the paint. And I'm going to use a finer brush because we need to, it's a little smaller. So I'm going to get something that has a little bit of finer point, and I'm going to use a brush like this. I don't know if you can see this. It's thick, but it has a finer point. So the shoe shape, it's a funny shape. It's kind of like a stretched out oval, but it kind of curves a little bit. So let me show you. When you look at your feet, and if you have bare feet or you can see your toes, take a look. Your big toe is the tallest point in your foot, and your foot kind of angles down. So you have your toe and it angles down. So if you look at flip-flops, it does that too. So your toes are on the inside, and we're going to start here and kind of angle down like this. Top. Okay, and then I'm going to go like this, and I'm making a shoe shape. Like this. It's a really simple shape. If you just do an oval, that's fine. I mean, it's not going to look like a real flip-flop. It's kind of our abstract-y shoe. So I did this, and I'm going to go ahead and then fill this in. Now my brown speckles aren't completely dry, so I might blend them in a little bit, and that's okay. So I did the edge really thick, and then I did the middle, because if we're really careful around the edge, we don't have to be super careful when we paint the inside in the middle, because we're not going to get the red paint all over our beach. Does that make sense? So I'm kind of doing a really thick outline like that. And I just fill it in. It's really super easy. Once we put the straps in, it'll look like a flip-flop. It doesn't matter what kind of shape you have. Okay, so that's one. We need a second one, and we're going to start here, the toe, and it kind of goes down like that. And we just want to make sure that they're the same size. You don't want one to be ginormous and then the other one to be small, because that would make you look like you have two different size feet. And that would be kind of silly, right? Unless you do. And if you have two different size feet, I apologize. So we're going to fill this in along the edges, and then we'll go into the middle. Really simple shape. Okay? I chose red because we have that blue and then the brown, and it really pops. So once I fill it in, I'm happy with the way it looks. I'll be done with that, okay? So I'm going to put my brush back in the water, and I'm going to get my strap color. And I chose yellow just because it's I think it would work well color-wise with the red and then the blue and the beach. So I'm going to get a little bit of the yellow and put it on my palette. And sometimes you have to shake these paints up because they can get a little water on the top. So just get a little bit, just like this. I'm going to make sure I clean my brush. Now, if you don't get all the red off, it's okay. When you put it in the yellow, it might show up as an orange, and it might a little bit anyway because the red's not completely dry. And the straps are really simple. We have in the middle, right here, we're gonna make like a little line because that's the little attachment to the shoe. Okay, so right in the middle, and we might have to go over it just a couple times. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make kind of a curved shape. So watch me first. You go like that. And it kind of, if you've ever seen a wishbone, it's kind of gonna look like a wishbone. Just like that. Now those are really thin, so we're gonna thicken them up a little bit. And we're gonna make the thickest part close to the top. Now the yellow is a little bit more translucent, and that's another fancy art word. It means you can see through it, translucent. So what I might need to do, because I have a little red on my paintbrush, is wipe it off and then put it back in the yellow. And see how it's kind of making an orange? I'm okay with it. It just means the red isn't completely dry. So what you can do is let this dry and then go back over it with the yellow. So sometimes in painting, it takes a couple steps, and in between the steps, we need to allow time. So don't be upset if your shoes don't look perfect because you're getting an orange effect. Let it dry and then go back over it with the yellow. Because we can't, with paint, make it dry. We can't make it dry faster if we're actually painting. So that's what I actually need to do with this, is let it dry so I can make it a little thicker yellow, brighter yellow. So you can do the same thing, but you get the idea. So after this dries, you can go back over it with more yellow to make this a little bit bolder, and then you're done. You can add more details, but this is the basics of doing kind of an abstract landscape, adding a focal point, and letting colors live with each other and add movement to your artwork. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. Keep working on your painting, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.